This audiobook is fan fiction and composed entirely of AI voice synthesis. Mr. Cleavant Derricks has had no part in its creation. It is not intended for resale and is not to be distributed for any type of monetary gain. Support Mr. Derricks by purchasing his body of work. The following story is written by Jimmy Catlett. It is told from the viewpoint of Rembrandt Brown. It takes place after Episode 8 of Season 2 of the television show Sliders, Post-Traumatic Slide Syndrome. Sit back for the next 25 minutes and enjoy Davinci's Paradise.
Man, I swear, sometimes I think this sliding thing is going to drive me crazy. I mean, how many worlds can a guy visit before he starts to lose track of who he really is? Every slide, it's like I leave a little piece of myself behind scattered across the multiverse. And the last world, we thought we had finally found home. But Quinn knew. He knew almost from the start. Me and Wade, though, we didn't want to believe it. We should have known to trust Q-All's intuition, but I guess we just wanted it to be real so bad that we tried to make out like he was losing it. And then there's the professor. Oh man, the professor. The man we had trusted, the man who had guided us, might have been replaced by his double. It's just so hard to tell. I mean, man, they were so much alike, we had no idea he wasn't our Arturo. And hell, I still don't know. He seems mostly the same, but subtle changes in his behavior and memory lapses have made me question everything. And now we are on this new world where technology has had a 500-year jumpstart. So anyway, I guess I'll start at the beginning of this last slide. I call this world Davinci's Paradise. Chapter 1, Arrival and Exploration. The vortex spat us out into the bustling heart of a city that seemed to straddle the line between history and futurism. Skyscrapers loomed above us, their designs a seamless blend of Renaissance elegance and modern technology. Holographic advertisements flickered in the air and drones buzzed around, their omnipresent eyes watching every move. I, Rembrandt Brown, former musician turned interdimensional traveler, took in the scene with a mix of awe and unease. It had been a long, strange trip since we first stumbled onto Quinn's invention of sliding and began our journey through parallel worlds. I was sucked into the vortex accidentally and have no clue as to how any of this works. I just know I have found a family in my companions. And then there was the Professor Maximilian Arturo. As always, he exuded an air of authority and wisdom. Yet lately there had been subtle changes in his demeanor that gnawed at my mind. Small slips in memory, unusual decisions, things I couldn't quite put my finger on but couldn't ignore either. Welcome to San Francisco, the Renaissance city, a voice announced from a nearby holographic display. A perfect fusion of history and technology, where Leonardo da Vinci's visionary designs paved the way for our modern utopia. Utopia, I muttered under my breath, glancing at the surveillance drones. More like a gilded cage. We moved cautiously through the city, taking in the advanced infrastructure. Automated vehicles zipped by on streets, and people moved with the efficiency of a well-oiled machine. Yet, beneath the surface, there was a tension, a sense of control that felt oppressive. Rembrandt Quinn called, snapping me out of my thoughts. We need to find out more about this world and see if we can get any clues on how to get home. I nodded, trying to push aside my growing suspicions about the professor. Right. Let's split up and gather information. As we dispersed, I couldn't shake the feeling that this world held more secrets than met the eye. And among those secrets, the truth about the professor's identity loomed large in my mind. I wandered through the city, observing the seamless integration of ancient and futuristic elements. Street vendors sold mechanical trinkets inspired by Da Vinci's designs, while AI-controlled kiosks offered everything from food to entertainment. It was a world where the past and future coexisted, yet something felt profoundly off. My thoughts were interrupted by a sudden commotion. A group of Techno-Guard operatives, clad in sleek uniforms, was escorting a man through the crowd. The man's face was familiar, yet older and more hardened. It was Michael Mallory, Quinn's father. Chapter 2, Political Landscape. Michael Mallory, head of Techno-Guard and president of the Western States, was a figure of authority and control. The Western States, everything west of Missouri, had split from the rest of the country, deemed more manageable by the AI that governed this world. I watched as he passed by, flanked by his guards. The crowd parted for him, a mix of fear and respect in their eyes. This was a man who wielded immense power, and it was clear that in this world, sliding technology was not just a tool, but a weapon of control. I hurried back to regroup with the others, my mind racing with the implications. Quinn needed to know about his father's role in this world, and we needed to understand how deeply the control of sliding technology went. Back at our meeting point, I found Wade and the professor waiting. Quinn arrived shortly after. I just found out something big, he said. His voice was tense. My father's not just alive in this world, he's the head of Techno Guard. Yeah, I know, cue ball, I said as I reached to lay a hand on Quinn's shoulder. I just saw him and rushed back to tell you. Thanks, Remy, he replied. I saw him on a holographic newsfeed myself a few minutes ago. He was making a speech about AI terrorist groups. Something doesn't feel right about this place. The revelation hit us all hard. The man we had to confront was not only a symbol of authority, but also Quinn's father. It complicated everything, adding a personal stake to our mission. We need to tread carefully, the professor said, his voice steady but with a hint of concern. If Michael Mallory controls sliding technology, we'll have to find a way to get the information we need without drawing too much attention. I glanced at the professor, searching for any sign of the duplicity I feared, but his concern seemed genuine, and for now I had to focus on the bigger picture. As we planned our next steps, Wade suggested we reach out to the underground resistance rumored to oppose the regime. I heard a couple of guys at the library talking about a group fighting against the AI control and surveillance, she said. If we can find them, they might have the resources we need. Quinn nodded. It's worth a shot. We need allies in this world if we're going to have any chance of getting the information we need. With a plan in place, we set out to find the resistance. Each step brought us closer to uncovering the secrets of this world, and for me, closer to understanding the truth about the professor. But as we moved through the city, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, and that our every move was being calculated by forces far beyond our control. Chapter 3, Slider Tech. We delved deeper into the city, following leads that Wade had managed to gather. The underground resistance was elusive, but not impossible to find. It took a few hours of navigating through back alleys and speaking in hushed tones before we found ourselves at the entrance of what appeared to be an old warehouse. The building looked abandoned, but we knew better. Inside, it was bustling with activity. People were huddled over maps, discussing strategies, and there were makeshift labs filled with various tech devices. This was clearly the heart of the resistance. As we entered, a young black man with striking features approached us. He was tall, with an athletic build, and his presence commanded respect. This was Derek, the leader of the resistance. His eyes, sharp and intelligent, met each of ours in turn. Wade told me about you, Derek said. His voice calm yet firm. She said you might be able to help us. Quinn stepped forward, explaining our situation and our need to understand the sliding technology that this world took for granted. Derek listened intently, his expression thoughtful. We've been fighting the Techno Guard for years, Derek said. But the sliding technology, that's something even we haven't fully been able to crack. The government keeps its inner workings a tightly guarded secret. We need to find a way to access their mainframe, Quinn suggested. If we can get inside, we might be able to get the information we need. Derek nodded. It's risky, but it might be our best shot. I'll help you. As we made plans to infiltrate the Techno Guard's headquarters, I couldn't help but notice how Wade looked at Derek. There was a spark in her eyes, a connection that went beyond mere admiration. Derek, for his part, seemed genuinely interested in Wade, but there was something in his demeanor that struck me as odd. I pushed the thought aside, focusing on the mission. We needed to move quickly and efficiently if we were going to have any chance of success. We spent the next few days preparing for the infiltration. Derek provided us with disguises and forged documents that would help us get past the initial security. As we worked together, I kept a close eye on the professor. His memory lapses were becoming more frequent, and each slip added fuel to my suspicions. Yet there were moments when he seemed like the professor I had always known. Wise, cautious, and deeply concerned for our well-being. It was these moments that made me question my doubts, even as the evidence against him continued to mount. Chapter 4. The encounter with Michael Mallory. The day of the infiltration arrived. Dressed in our disguises, we made our way to the Techno Guard headquarters, a towering edifice of glass and steel. The security was tight, with guards and surveillance drones everywhere. We passed through the initial checkpoints without incident, thanks to Derek's forged documents. As we entered the main building, the reality of what we were attempting hit me. We were deep in enemy territory, surrounded by the very forces that sought to control every aspect of this world. Inside, the building was a maze of corridors and security checkpoints. We moved with purpose, Derek leading the way. He seemed to know the layout well, guiding us through back routes and service tunnels to avoid detection. Finally, we reached a secure lab where the sliding technology was housed. The room was filled with advanced equipment, the likes of which I had never seen before. It was a testament to the technological prowess of this world and the lengths to which the government would go to maintain control. As Quinn and Derek worked on accessing the mainframe, the door to the lab suddenly opened. Standing there, flanked by TechnoGuard operatives, was Michael Mallory. His presence was imposing, and his eyes bore into us with a mix of curiosity and authority. "Quinn," he said, his voice cold, "what are you doing here?" Quinn stood his ground, his expression defiant. "We need the information on sliding technology. We're not here to cause trouble, but we need to find a way home." Michael's eyes narrowed. "You don't understand the dangers of what you're asking for. Sliding technology is not something to be taken lightly. It's a tool of control, and in the wrong hands, it can cause chaos." "And whose hands are the right ones?" Quinn shot back. "Yours? The TechnoGuards? You've turned this world into a prison, using technology to suppress and control." The tension in the room was thick. Michael raised a hand, signaling his operatives to stand down. "You want to play with fire, Quinn? Let's see if you can handle the heat." Before we could react, Michael activated a security protocol. Alarms blared, and the room was bathed in red light. Quinn and Derek frantically worked to download the information, while the professor and I held off the advancing guards. In the chaos, I saw the professor take a hit, collapsing to the ground. My heart pounded as I rushed to his side, helping him up. He looked at me with a mixture of pain and confusion, and for a moment I saw the old professor, the one I had trusted and respected. But there was no time to dwell on my suspicions. We had to get out of there, and fast. Chapter 5. Rembrandt's suspicion. Back at the Resistance hideout, we regrouped and assessed our situation. The professor's injury wasn't severe, but it was a stark reminder of the dangers we faced. As we tended to his wounds, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still off. The professor's memory lapses were becoming more pronounced. He struggled to remember basic details about our past adventures, and his behavior seemed increasingly erratic. Each slip added to the growing unease gnawing at my mind. One evening, as the others slept, I decided to investigate further. I had seen the professor accessing a virtual doctor earlier, and I wanted to know what he had discovered. Carefully, I accessed the system, sifting through the medical records until I found his file. What I found shocked me. The professor had been diagnosed with a terminal illness that caused memory lapses and other cognitive issues. The weight of this revelation hit me hard. It explained so much, yet it left me with more questions than answers. I sat there, staring at the screen, torn between my loyalty to the professor and my growing suspicions. He hadn't told us about his illness, and I understood why. But the secrecy, combined with his behavior, made it difficult to fully trust him. For now, I decided to keep this information to myself. We had enough to deal with, and I needed time to process everything. I resolved to watch the professor closely, looking for any signs that might confirm or dispel my doubts. As the days passed, I continued to observe the professor, noting every slip and inconsistency. At the same time, we worked on deciphering the information we had obtained from the TechnoGuard mainframe. It was a complex puzzle, and Quinn was determined to crack it. Meanwhile, Wade's relationship with Derek deepened. She spent more time with him, learning about his past and the Resistance's efforts. There was a connection between them that was undeniable, and I could see how much she admired him. Chapter 6. Wade's infatuation. Wade's infatuation with Derek grew stronger with each passing day. She was drawn to his charisma, his dedication to the cause, and his willingness to fight against the oppressive regime. They spent hours together discussing strategies and sharing personal stories. One evening, as we sat around the campfire, Wade opened up about her feelings. "Derek is different," she said, her eyes glowing with admiration. "He's not just fighting for freedom, he's fighting for a world where people can live without fear and control." I nodded, understanding her sentiments, but unable to shake my own doubts. Derek was a key figure in the Resistance, but there was something about him that seemed almost too perfect. As Wade grew closer to Derek, she began to notice the subtle ways in which he differed from the other Resistance members. He seemed to have an innate understanding of technology, and his strategic thinking was unparalleled. It was as if he had an edge that no one else possessed. One day, while working together on a mission, Wade confronted Derek about his past. "You never talk about your family," she said, her voice gentle but insistent. "Where did you come from before all of this?" Derek hesitated, his expression briefly flickering with something that looked like pain. "My family is gone," he said finally. "They died in the early days of the Techno-Guard's rise to power. Since then, I've dedicated myself to fighting for a better world." Wade accepted his explanation, but the brief hesitation stuck with her. She shared her concerns with me later, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "I believe him, Remy, but there's something he's not telling me. I can feel it." I listened, my own suspicions aligning with hers. "Just be careful, Wade. This world is full of secrets and we need to stay vigilant." As we continued our preparations for the next phase of our mission, Wade's relationship with Derek became both a source of strength and a potential vulnerability. The closer she got to him, the more she risked getting caught up in whatever secrets he was hiding. Meanwhile, Quinn made significant progress in deciphering the information from the mainframe. The sliding technology was more advanced than anything we had encountered before, and the government had gone to great lengths to keep it that way. We discovered that the Techno-Guard had developed a way to control the destinations of their slides, ensuring that they only traveled to worlds where the technology already existed. It was a way to maintain balance and prevent the spread of knowledge that could disrupt their control. This revelation was both a blessing and a curse. It meant that if we could gain access to their control system, we might be able to find a way home. But it also meant that our mission was even more dangerous than we had initially thought. As we prepared for the next phase, I couldn't help but feel the weight of the secrets and suspicions that surrounded us: the professor's illness, Derek's hidden past, and the oppressive control of the Techno-Guard. All of it loomed over us, threatening to unravel everything we were fighting for. Chapter 7. Derek's True Nature. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. While working late one night, Wade stumbled upon a hidden file within the mainframe data. It contained information about a project known as Phoenix, and as she delved deeper, the truth about Derek began to emerge. "Remy, you need to see this," she whispered, her voice trembling with a mix of shock and disbelief. I joined her at the terminal, and together we uncovered the details of Derek's creation. The real Derek had been a brilliant scientist who worked closely with Michael Mallory. Years ago, he had contracted a deadly disease while on an off-world mission. Desperate to save his life, Mallory had his brain transferred to a mainframe, preserving his consciousness. But something had gone wrong. The process had altered Derek's memories, creating a distorted version of his past. His consciousness had been used to create a bioengineered synthetic body, merging human intellect with AI capabilities. The Derek we knew was a hybrid, a blend of man and machine. As the implications of this revelation sank in, I saw Wade's face pale. "He remembers who he is, but his past is all mixed up," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "He's been fighting against the very thing that created him." I placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We need to confront him, Wade. He deserves to know the truth, and we need to understand his role in all of this." We gathered the others and made our way to Derek's quarters. He looked up as we entered, sensing the gravity of the situation. Wade stepped forward, holding the data file. "Derek, we found something. You need to see this." Derek's eyes widened as he read through the file. For a moment, he was silent, processing the information. Then he looked up, his expression a mix of anger and sorrow. "I always knew something was off," he said quietly, "but I never imagined it was this." He explained how he had always felt different, a sense of detachment that he couldn't explain. His memories were fragmented, filled with gaps that made no sense. Now it all fell into place. "Michael Mallory did this to me," Derek said, his voice trembling with emotion. "He turned me into a weapon, a pawn in his game of control. But I won't let him win. I will fight for my freedom and for the freedom of everyone oppressed by his regime." His resolve was inspiring, and it strengthened our determination to see this mission through. We had allies in the resistance, a plan to infiltrate the Techno-Guard, and a newfound understanding of the stakes involved. The final confrontation with Michael Mallory was looming, and we were ready to face whatever came our way. Chapter 8. Infiltration of Techno-Guard. The day of the infiltration arrived, and tension hung in the air. We donned our disguises and made our way to the Techno-Guard headquarters once more. This time we had a clearer objective and a more detailed plan. Derek, now fully aware of his true nature, was determined to use his unique abilities to our advantage. His knowledge of the Techno-Guard systems, combined with his AI-enhanced intellect, made him an invaluable asset. As we approached the headquarters, Derek accessed a hidden network, disabling several security protocols and creating a diversion that drew the guards away from our entry point. It was a risky move, but it bought us the time we needed to get inside. We moved quickly through the building, guided by Derek's intimate knowledge of the layout. Quinn and Wade worked together to navigate the complex systems, while the professor and I kept watch, ready to fend off any threats. We reached a secure lab where the sliding technology was housed. This time we had a clear path to the mainframe, and Quinn began the process of downloading the information we needed. The tension was palpable, every second feeling like an eternity. Suddenly the alarms blared again and the room was flooded with red light. Guards converged on our location and a fierce battle ensued. Derek's enhanced reflexes and combat skills proved crucial as we fought to hold them off. In the midst of the chaos, Michael Mallory appeared, flanked by a new wave of operatives. His eyes locked onto Quinn, filled with a mixture of anger and disappointment. "You never learn, do you, Quinn?" he said coldly. Quinn stood his ground, determination etched on his face. "This isn't about me, Dad. It's about stopping you from using this technology to control and oppress people." The confrontation reached its peak as Quinn and Michael clashed, both physically and ideologically. In the midst of the struggle, Derek managed to access a critical system override, shutting down the security protocols and allowing Quinn to complete the download. With the information in hand, we made a desperate dash for the exit, fending off guards and dodging gunfire. The resistance members who had infiltrated with us provided cover, ensuring our escape. The mission had been a success, but it had come at a high cost. Chapter 9. Showdown with Michael Mallory. We regrouped outside the headquarters, catching our breath and assessing our injuries. Derek's revelation and the intensity of the battle weighed heavily on us, but there was no time to rest. We needed to get the information back to the resistance and prepare for the next slide. Quinn confronted Michael one last time, his voice filled with resolve. "This isn't over, Dad. We will find a way to stop you and bring freedom to this world." Michael's expression was a mix of frustration and grudging respect. "You're a fool, Quinn. But I underestimated you. We'll meet again." As we retreated to the resistance hideout, Derek's presence took on new significance. He was no longer just a leader of the resistance, he was a symbol of the struggle against the oppressive regime. His unique abilities and insights would be crucial in the battles to come. Wade stayed close to Derek, her admiration for him tempered by the complexity of his true nature. She saw the strength in him, the determination to fight for a better world, despite the painful truth of his existence. Back at the hideout, we shared the information we had gathered with the resistance. It was a treasure trove of data detailing the inner workings of the sliding technology and the ways in which it was controlled. With this knowledge, we could disrupt the Technogar's operations and pave the way for future slides. As we prepared for our next journey, I took a moment to reflect on everything we had been through. The revelations about the professor's illness, Derek's true nature, and the ongoing battle against oppression had reshaped our mission in ways we couldn't have imagined. The professor, despite his struggles, remained a pillar of wisdom and guidance. His illness was a heavy burden, but his resolve to see us through this journey never wavered. I decided to keep his secret for now, understanding that it was his story to tell when the time was right. Wade's emotional journey with Derek added a new layer of complexity to our group dynamics. Her strength and resilience were inspiring, and her connection with Derek reminded us all of the importance of human connection in the face of adversity. As we stood together, ready to activate the timer and slide to the next world, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The challenges we faced were daunting, but we had each other, and that was enough to keep moving forward. The vortex opened before us, its swirling energy a reminder of the countless possibilities and dangers that lay ahead. With a deep breath, we stepped through, leaving behind the world of control and stepping into the unknown, united in our quest for freedom and understanding. Chapter 10, Revelation and Resolution. We emerged from the vortex into a new world. It was a stark contrast to the technologically advanced city we had just left behind. The air was crisp and the landscape around us was filled with lush greenery and rolling hills. It was a welcome change, but our minds were still reeling from the recent events. As we set up camp, the professor's condition weighed heavily on my mind. I couldn't ignore the memory lapses and the way he struggled to keep up. He was trying so hard to maintain his composure, but the signs were becoming more evident. By this time, I had allowed myself to be convinced that we did, after all, have the right Professor Arturo. We had 3 days on this world. 3 long days of living off the land with no technology in sight, save for what Quinn had taken from the last world. On our final day, Quinn worked tirelessly on the timer, making adjustments and ensuring that we were ready for the next jump. He had it hooked up to a tablet computer, crunching numbers and trying to reconfigure the timer to hopefully open up on his home coordinates. His determination to find a way home was unwavering, and his resolve inspired all of us. I approached the professor, who was sitting quietly by the campfire. "Ready for the next adventure, Professor?" I asked with a smile. He looked up, a glint of determination in his eyes. Always, Rembrandt, always. As the time for our departure approached, I took a moment to reflect on the journey we had been on. The challenges we faced were immense, but we had grown stronger as a team, and the ongoing battles had brought us closer together. Would the next slide be the slide home? Who knows? One thing is for sure, we will face it together as a family.